My nephew's disturbing behavior led to us discovering my sister was being abused by her boyfriend and his brother. Me and my friends confronted them and hell broke loose. Something's been off with my nephew lately, Milo's 8 million, and it's eating away at me because I can't shake the feeling that something serious is going on and no one's saying it out loud. I don't have kids, but I've always been close with my sister Tasha. We're about 1.5 years apart in age, and I've been around Milo since the day he was born. He's always been a bright, loud, slightly nerdy little kid, loves dinosaurs and soccer, gets hyper when he's excited, the usual. But over the last few months, that kid has sort of disappeared. Now he's moody, quiet, jumpy in ways that don't feel like just growing pains. He flinches at loud noises, gets really uncomfortable around strangers, and I've caught him zoning out a lot, just completely tuning out, staring at nothing. The other week, he was playing with my dog and suddenly shoved him pretty hard for no reason. I told him off, but he just stared at me like he was somewhere else entirely. When I asked him why he did that, he didn't say much, just looked at his hands and said the dog looked at him weird. That's not like Milo. He loves animals. That moment didn't sit right with me. He's been staying at mine on some weekends. Tasha says it gives her a break and helps Milo reset a bit. She's been vague lately too. Always tired, looks worn down, says she's busy with work and life. She and her ex, Matt, were on and off for years, and I thought they were finally done. But every time I ask about him, she gives me these short, dismissive answers like, "We're figuring things out." It doesn't sound like someone who's moving on. A few weeks back, I dropped Milo off after he spent the night at mine, and I noticed Matt's car parked across the street from Tasha's apartment. I didn't knock or anything, but as I walked back to my car, I heard yelling through the front window. I didn't stay to listen. I didn't want to invade her privacy, but something about it made me feel gross. Fast forward to the most recent visit, Milo was lying on the couch while I made lunch, and I heard him mumbling something under his breath. It sounded like, "The man in the garage." When I asked him who that was, he clammed up instantly and started fiddling with the corner of his hoodie. Then, when I reached over to pass him his drink, he flinched hard like he thought I was going to hit him. That messed me up. I've never raised my voice around him for no good reason. Never laid a hand on him. I didn't know what to say. I asked if everything was okay at home, and he just nodded without making eye contact. Then a few minutes later, out of nowhere, he said something like, "Uncle Ryan says I'm a bastard brat." I froze. Matt has a brother, Ryan. I've met him maybe 3 or 4 times over the years. Never liked him, but I didn't have a reason to say anything before. The way Milo said it just so flat, like it was something normal to hear, made my stomach turn. Later that night, I asked Tasha about Ryan. She just said he was around sometimes, then changed the subject. I didn't push her, but it's eating at me. I'm worried Milo's being exposed to something he shouldn't be. Whether it's verbal abuse, emotional neglect, or worse, I don't know. But the signs are there. The sudden personality shift, the fear, the outbursts, the weird things he says. And I don't know how far to take this without crossing a line. I feel stuck. Tasha's always been independent, stubborn even. She doesn't like being told what to do. And I know she's been through a lot, especially with Matt, who has a history of being manipulative and jealous. I don't want to scare her off or make her shut down, but I also can't sit back and pretend like this is normal. I've thought about calling someone, or even CPS, maybe, but I don't have anything concrete. Just a bunch of red flags and a gut feeling that things aren't safe. And honestly, I don't know if doing that would make it better or worse. What if I push too hard and she cuts me off completely? What if that puts Milo in more danger? I'm trying not to be dramatic. I know kids act out for all sorts of reasons, especially when their parents are going through messy breakups. But something about this feels different. The things Milo says, the way he looks at me sometimes like he's waiting for me to hurt him, it's not right. I don't want to be the guy who assumes the worst and causes a scene, but I also don't want to be the guy who saw the signs and did nothing. Is this overreacting, or am I right to start taking this more seriously? I'm not sure what my next step should be. I just know something's wrong, really wrong, and I don't want to wait until it's too late to say something. Any advice would help, even if it's just to confirm that I'm not losing my mind. Update 1. After that last post, I couldn't let it sit. The stuff Milo said wasn't going away, and I couldn't shake the way he flinched when I tried to take that toy. It wasn't just about bad parenting or a rough breakup. That kid was scared of something or someone, and I wasn't going to keep pretending I didn't see it. So I called my sister and said I wanted to hang out with Milo, maybe take him to the park, grab ice cream. She agreed, said she'd drop him off the next day. When she came by, I made sure to ask if she had time to stay for coffee. I needed to talk to her, no dancing around it. She was tired, looked more than tired, pale, dark circles, like she hadn't slept properly in weeks. At first, I tried to keep things light, asked how work was going, how Milo was doing in school, but it didn't take long before I cut to the point. I asked her straight, "Is Matt still in the picture?" She didn't say anything right away, just kind of froze and stared at the floor. When she finally spoke, she kept her voice low, like she was afraid someone might hear her. She told me she didn't want to talk about him, said it was complicated. I told her it wasn't either he was still in her life or he wasn't, and if he was, I needed to know because Milo was clearly not okay. That's when she broke. She said Matt never actually left. They were working on things. He moved back in months ago after losing his job, and apparently he didn't come back alone. His brother Ryan had moved in too. Said it was temporary, but that was 6 months ago. She told me Matt started drinking again, and the fights came back almost immediately. Not every day, not physical, yet, but loud, aggressive, condescending. He calls her lazy, says she's a bad mom, accuses her of sleeping around if she works late. And Ryan? Worse. According to her, he acts like he owns the place, doesn't say much, but walks around like he's the one paying bills. She said he grabbed her once when she asked him to stop going into the kitchen while she was changing in the laundry room. Said he got right up in her face and told her to watch her tone. No one did anything. Matt apparently just stood there. I asked her why she didn't tell me any of this. She said she was ashamed, that she didn't know how to explain it, that she thought she could handle it, that money's tight, and Matt covers most of the rent with what's left of his unemployment. She's working 2 part-time jobs, one of them overnight. She said it all like she was trying to justify it, like any of it made sense. I told her to pack her stuff, take Milo, and stay with me. She shook her head, said they'd come after her, that she didn't want Milo to see her running away again, that it'd just make everything worse. I couldn't believe it. She looked terrified but still somehow convinced that staying was safer. That's what messed with my head the most. That she'd been backed so far into a corner she believed this was her best option. So I did what I could. I made sure she knew my door was open, that no matter what happened, if she needed me, really needed me, I'd be there. And then I made the call to CPS. I kept it anonymous, just said there was a child in a home with 2 men, one of them reportedly aggressive, and that the mother seemed scared to speak freely. I didn't give names, just an address and what Milo had said. I hated doing it behind her back, but I couldn't risk waiting around. That kid deserved better than whatever hell he was growing up in. Still, I know these systems aren't perfect. I don't know what they'll actually do or if they'll even follow up, but it felt like the only concrete step I had at the time. I called a couple of friends that night, people I trust. One of them's a lawyer and another works in crisis counseling. We sat around my kitchen table until midnight going through options, legal steps, safety planning, what to do if things escalated. I've never had conversations like that before, and I hope I never have to again, but I'm grateful they didn't downplay it. They took me seriously. My lawyer friend told me not to confront Matt or Ryan unless I had backup or evidence, especially if they're drinking or unstable. Said it could go sideways fast. Right now, I feel like I'm stuck watching a train wreck in slow motion, knowing the people I care about are inside, but not being able to pull them out. It's one thing to suspect something's wrong. It's another thing entirely to hear it confirmed and still feel completely powerless. I hate that she still thinks she has to manage this on her own. I hate that she's more scared of leaving than staying. I hate that Milo's growing up thinking this is normal. And I hate that Matt and Ryan are just out there, walking around like none of it matters. I'm not going to let this drop. I've started documenting everything. Times, dates, details. I don't care if it makes me paranoid. If she ever does decide to leave, I want to have something concrete to back her up. And if CPS doesn't follow through, I'll figure out a different way to escalate it. Update 2. It was nearly 2 a.m. when I heard a knock at my apartment door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and I hadn't been sleeping much anyway, so I was still up. The second I opened it and saw my sister standing there with Milo half asleep beside her and a duffel bag in hand, I knew something had finally snapped. Tasha looked worn out, hair pulled back like she didn't care, hoodie zipped halfway, one sneaker untied. The first thing I noticed was the cut near her temple. It wasn't bleeding heavily, but it had clearly happened recently. She didn't say anything. She just walked in, holding Milo by the hand, and sat on my couch, like her legs gave out. Milo curled up with my dog almost immediately. I sat across from her and asked what happened. She didn't even try to act like things were fine this time. She just shook her head and said she couldn't stay in that house anymore. Ryan had cornered her while she was in the bathroom, pounding on the door and making disgusting comments when she told him to back off. He'd called her names, and when she yelled at him, he smirked like it was funny. Matt hadn't stepped in. He left the house entirely, supposedly because she was starting fights again. She said Ryan had made calls to someone afterward, laughing about how she acts like she's better than everyone else, like it was some inside joke. That broke something in her, she told me. She realized nothing was going to change, and whatever grip she had left on hope had just collapsed. I asked if Ryan had hit her. She didn't answer directly. All she said was that it wasn't the first time he'd put his hands on her to make a point. She wouldn't explain more. I didn't push. I didn't need the full picture to know it was bad enough. I called the police that night. I explained the situation as clearly as I could, but they said without proof or an active threat at the scene, there wasn't much they could do. The officer told me to keep her safe and advised her to file for a protective order in the morning. First thing the next day, I drove Tasha to the courthouse. She filed for a temporary restraining order against both Matt and Ryan. It took time, but with a caseworker from a local shelter helping guide her, she was able to get it granted. The shelter gave her a list of legal contacts, counselors, and emergency housing options. She didn't want to go to the shelter though. She asked if she and Milo could stay with me for a while. I didn't hesitate. Of course they could. That first week, she barely slept. She'd flinch when someone walked past the window. If my phone buzzed or I spoke too loudly, she'd jump. But I also saw tiny shifts. Milo started smiling more. He spent time playing quietly without looking over his shoulder. He talked to my dog like it was his best friend. It was like the tension started melting off of him. But Matt wasn't done. He started texting her from new numbers. First, it was the usual manipulative guilt about how she tore the family apart, how he never meant for any of this, and how Ryan was just misunderstood. When she didn't respond, Ryan started sending messages too. His were different, short, weird, the kind of stuff that made your stomach turn. Things like, lies catch up, and you belong to Matt. I told her to block the numbers. She did, but it didn't feel like enough. After about a week, we decided we needed to get the rest of her stuff out of the house. She was nervous, but I made it clear we weren't asking. We were showing up, and we weren't going alone. I brought 2 friends with me. One of them is a lawyer, and the other works in private security. They didn't come to start something, but we weren't walking in there blind either. Tasha stayed in the car around the corner with Milo. She didn't want to see them. When we got to the house, Matt and Ryan were there. Of course they were. Matt came to the door first. He had that fake, calm energy, trying to act like none of this was a big deal. He said we were blowing things out of proportion and that Tasha was influenced by outsiders. Ryan was just behind him, arms crossed, staring like he wanted me to make a move. I didn't take the bait. I just told Matt we were here to get Tasha's and Milo's things, nothing more. Ryan stepped forward and told us we didn't have permission to enter. My friend pulled out his phone and started recording. That was enough to make Ryan back off. We went in, grabbed everything we could: clothes, school stuff, documents, Milo's favorite toys, even kitchen stuff she'd bought. They followed us around the house, muttering things under their breath, but they didn't touch us. Right before we left, Ryan said something about how women like her always come crawling back. I turned to him and told him this was the last time he'd be near her again, and that if he stepped 1 foot near my home or hers, I'd make sure every dirty thing he'd done was out in public for the whole world to see. He didn't respond. We got out without a fight, but the tension followed us all the way back to my apartment. Since then, things haven't been easy, but they've been quieter. Tasha's still on edge. She's not sleeping through the night, but she's safe. Milo's safe. That's all that matters right now. I know it's not over. I know guys like Matt and Ryan don't just walk away, but I'm not going to let my sister go back to that hell. I already feel like I should have done more, should have acted sooner. That guilt sticks with me, but I'm not going to waste time dwelling on it. I've got cameras installed. I've told my landlord everything. I've got copies of every message they've sent her. They want to fight? Fine. But it won't be on their terms. It's far from over. Update 3. I wasn't surprised when they showed up. I kind of expected it. After the way we confronted them and took Tasha's things, I knew they weren't going to take it lying down. But even knowing that didn't make it any easier when it happened. It was around 9:30 p.m. I had just gotten Milo to sleep and was cleaning up the kitchen when I noticed movement outside the window. My apartment faces the parking lot, and right there, leaning against Matt's car, were both of them, Matt and Ryan, just standing there, smoking, pacing, looking up, not saying a word, just there. I didn't go outside. I didn't even open the blinds fully. I stood back, took a picture through the gap, and called the cops immediately. Not to confront them, just to cover my own ass. Tasha was already tense that day, but when I told her, she went pale. She started spiraling again, saying she should have never come here, that she was putting me and Milo in danger, and that maybe going back would be easier. I had to shut that down immediately. The cops showed up maybe 20 minutes later, but by then, they were gone. Typical. I showed the cops the picture. All they said was, unless they were doing something threatening, there wasn't much they could do. I told them just standing out there like creeps was threatening when you've been stalking someone. But again, same story, file a report, log the incident, and basically just hope for the best. The next morning, I ordered cameras for the apartment, front and back entrances. I alerted my landlord too, who was surprisingly supportive and said if I needed to break the lease early for safety reasons, he'd help make it happen. I wasn't going anywhere yet though. Tasha needed somewhere to stay, and I wasn't going to let a couple of miserable cowards scare us off. After that night, I sat Tasha down and told her bluntly she had to stop engaging. No more replying to Matt's texts, no more checking his socials, no more maybe I'll just tell him to stop one more time. Because every single time she responded, it gave them more reason to think she could still be pushed. She nodded and said she understood, but it wasn't easy for her. They'd spent years screwing with her head, and even now, she still blamed herself, still thought maybe she escalated things, or should have left differently. I wasn't going to sit around and argue with her about that, but I made it clear what she was doing now was the right thing. It was the only thing. Then came Matt's email. I hadn't heard from him directly before that. It was always through Tasha or his brother or little indirect jabs, but this time he messaged me directly, said he wanted peace, that they just wanted to talk it out and end things without hate. Classic manipulator language. I knew what it was about. They were losing control. They thought if they came across like calm, rational guys, they could flip the script. So, I said fine, let's talk. But not at my place, not anywhere private. I picked a local cafe near a busy intersection, and I didn't go alone. 2 of my close friends came with me, not as muscle, just as witnesses. One of them had dealt with something similar before and knew how quickly these things could go sideways. The second I walked in, I knew what kind of game they were playing. Matt was all fake sadness, tired eyes, acting like he was the victim in all this, saying he'd lost everything: his home, his girlfriend, even his relationship with Milo. Meanwhile, Ryan just sat there, arms crossed, looking around like he owned the place. Didn't say much, but when he did, it was always the same type of low-key threat, like, "You really want this drama? Over what?" Or, "Families fight. Doesn't mean they destroy each other." Stuff like that. I let them talk. Let them spill whatever garbage they needed to. Then I told them straight I wasn't interested in peace, and I wasn't scared of them. I told them if they came near Tasha or Milo again, I'd do more than just call the cops. I'd go public. I'd show the texts, the emails, the recordings. I'd drag them through every legal process possible. And if they still thought they had power after that, they were welcome to try. Matt looked shaken. Ryan looked annoyed. And that was enough for me. After that meeting, we pushed ahead with the restraining order. The shelter helped Tasha get legal aid. We filed for a long-term protective order against both Matt and Ryan. We included the parking lot incident and the messages they sent afterward. It's still a process, it takes time, and the courts move slow, but it's in motion. Milo's in therapy now. He's quiet, but better. He sleeps through the night. He talks more when we play games together. Sometimes he draws pictures of safe houses, and they all look like my apartment. That part hurts, but it also tells me we're doing something right. Tasha's still shaky. She's doing better, but the damage they did isn't something that goes away overnight. She's not making excuses for them anymore, but I can still see the doubt in her eyes sometimes. She'll go quiet during certain conversations, and I know she's replaying things in her head. That's how it works. They make you question yourself so much that even when you know the truth, it feels blurry. But I'm not blurry anymore. I'm not second-guessing anything. I'm not hoping things calm down or waiting for the next text. They showed their hand, and now I'm showing mine. We're not going back. We're not explaining ourselves. We're not apologizing for putting safety first. This isn't over yet, but we're not scared anymore. If they show up again, we'll deal with it. If they try to twist the story, we'll fight back. And if they think this is just another game they can win, they picked the wrong guy. Tasha is protected, Milo is healing, and I'm making sure they both have space to rebuild without fear. Final update. It's been just over a month since things came to a head. I wasn't sure if I should post again, but enough has happened that it feels right to wrap this up. This whole thing has changed a lot our routines, how we look at each other, what we trust, and what we just tolerate. None of us came out of this without something scraped off. Tasha is still living with me for now. She has a room set up for Milo, and it finally feels like a real home again. She's been working a new job part-time and doing an online course during the evenings. Nothing big or dramatic, just consistent steps in a new direction. She still has her off days. Sometimes something minor will set her off a noise, someone knocking too loud, Milo having a nightmare, and she'll go quiet for a while. But she's not shutting down like she used to. That's progress. As for Milo, he's finally in weekly therapy. It took a bit to find the right person, but he's seeing someone who specializes in trauma in kids. They haven't given an official diagnosis other than saying he shows clear symptoms of PTSD. Not surprising. The stuff that kid went through isn't something any 8-year-old should even be aware of, let alone experience regularly. He's talking more though. Not about everything, but enough that I can tell he doesn't feel frozen anymore. He asked if he could stay here forever. I told him as long as he wants to, he can. He just nodded and kept coloring. It broke me a bit, not gonna lie. We did end up going back to court. Matt violated the restraining order by getting one of his friends to text Tasha's number pretending to be Milo's classmate's dad, except the number was registered to someone linked to Matt, and the message had phrases Milo wouldn't use. Tasha's lawyer jumped on it immediately. They filed for contempt and requested a longer-term order. The judge extended it and added some requirements. If Matt ever wants to apply for any kind of supervised visitation down the line, he has to complete anger management and a parenting program. Knowing Matt, I doubt he'll make it past session 1. Ryan just vanished. No one knows where he went, but a friend of mine heard through someone that he's left the state. Supposedly he had been mixed up in something unrelated, maybe drugs, maybe something else, but it tracks. The guy always had a weird edge to him, like he was just looking for a reason to escalate. I don't care where he went, as long as he stays gone. I don't want to act like I handled all this perfectly. I didn't. I was slow at first, second-guessing myself way too much. I didn't trust my gut when Milo first started showing signs, and I regret that. I kept thinking maybe I was reading too much into it, or maybe it wasn't my place to get involved. Looking back, that hesitation gave those guys more room than they deserved. But when it came down to it, I showed up. I made space, I made noise, and I pushed where I needed to. That's what mattered in the end. Tasha and I have been talking more openly now. Not about everything, there's a lot she's still working through, but the kind of stuff siblings don't always say out loud. She's told me she feels ashamed of how long she stayed, but I told her what I've always believed. Survival isn't weakness. You get through however you can, and sometimes that means making decisions you're not proud of, just to get to the next day. She needed someone to remind her she wasn't crazy or weak or stupid, just stuck, and now she's not anymore. I've kept the cameras installed around my place. Probably overkill at this point, but it makes Tasha feel safer, so they're staying. Same with the extra locks. There's still this small part of me that expects the other shoe to drop. That's probably just how it goes when you've been on edge for too long. Even when they're gone, the weight of them sticks around for a bit. The only good thing out of all this is how much closer our little circle got. My friends, the ones who stepped up and didn't flinch when things got messy, proved what real support looks like. One of them even helped Tasha rewrite her resume and prep for job interviews. No drama, no big speeches, just people doing what they could. It's not over. Trauma doesn't just disappear, but things are quieter now. Milo had a school event last week, and for the first time in a while, he invited me. He stood on that stage looking like a normal kid again, and I knew we were on the right path. Thanks to everyone who offered advice along the way. It helped more than you know. I don't think I'll post more after this. We've got a long way to go, but the worst of it is behind us now, and honestly, that's enough.